how many women are we talking about, and particularly women of color, are being disproportionately affected by this pandemic, and why?
Brooke, there's no doubt that women, and particularly women of color, are on the front lines of this pandemic, and they are really feeling the brunts of the economic and workplace impacts almost more than anyone else. And that's partly because they are the majority in a lot of jobs and industries that are being affected by this crisis, but it's also because they've had to take on additional caregiving and other responsibilities of the home. And no matter what situation they're in, whether they're in a job, they're being pushed out of a job, or they're trying to get hired, they are facing really difficult choices with very few resources. And let's not forget that we're just starting to recognize and acknowledge that we have a major childcare crisis in this country. So we're not going to be able to talk about reopening and increasing employment until we address that problem.
Women have been, I hear you, but and women have been working for years now, right, to increase representation in the workplace, close the pay gap, and to your point about how now so many women are being forced, maybe temporarily in some cases, to quit jobs, stay at home, take care of the kids. How might this have a detrimental effect on that overarching progress?
What we're seeing is that a lot of women are being put in a very difficult position of choosing between a job and caring for their family. So there's a majority of the people working in essential jobs in this crisis are women. So they're the ones putting their lives on the line to work in healthcare and childcare, grocery stores, as teachers. But at the same time, they're risking their health to do so, and they also have their own caregiving responsibilities at home. But with all the uncertainties around schools and around childcare centers reopening and whether they're safe, a lot of women are finding that the only solution is to cut back on their hours, or in some cases, step out of the workforce for a while. In some cases, they're being pushed out of the workforce by their employers who are saying, you know what, you can't take care of your kids while you're working, or they keep interrupting too many phone calls. You need to make a choice. That's right. And that's been happening for a long time. That's nothing new, but I think it's being made clearer and more acute because of this crisis. Our workplaces, even before this pandemic, were outdated, and they didn't reflect the reality of many women's working lives. So what we're seeing now is that problem is being made even worse. Without employers who are flexible and understand the reality of this situation.
But some employers, I was reading, and you tell me if this is legit or not, that there is at least some sort of silver lining to all of this, because we are sitting here on national television talking about it. That this is now out in the open, the fact that women do so much, at work and at home. How are companies stepping up, some companies, to provide childcare, or perhaps fathers, our lovely men, stepping up at home?
That's right. And I think it's true that a lot of employers and a lot of other family members are stepping up to take on their share of caregiving or other responsibilities, and employers are implementing more flexible policies. That's great for the people who have the ability to work from home. If you're an essential worker and you have to go into the grocery store or the hospital, that poses its own set of problems. But even then, for people who can work from home, there are all kinds of additional pressures. And unless we have workplaces that are reconceptualized and rebuilt to center the needs of women and people who are caregivers, I don't think that we're going to make the giant changes and positive steps that we need to see. The wage gap you mentioned, that's been around for a long time. It hasn't changed basically in about a decade. And the real concern here is that as women are being pushed out of the workforce, pushed into lower paying jobs, or cutting back on their hours, that is going to magnify the wage gap over time.
Right. The worries long term that it all worsens, and then we're just that much farther back when we finally, are able to get back in the workplace and do all the juggling that so many women are good at doing. Maya?